Presentation today is the future of business reporting and analytics, aka Skynet. Where is everything going? We've heard all about the cloud. We've heard all about artificial intelligence. We've heard about machine learning. Where is all this going? How is that going to affect us in the world of EPM and BI? Presented to you today by interRel Consultants. Hopefully you all know who we are. We've been around for 21 coming up on 22 years, focusing strictly in the EPM and BI space, specialists in planning, the leader, I believe, in the cloud world. I think you know all about interRel. I've been with the company for well over 5 years now doing what I do, which is strategic services. This circle that you see in the middle, I visit companies and I interview people all the way from the admins all the way up to C-level executives, trying to set roadmaps. A lot of the things that I talk about in my work are exactly what we're here to talk about today, which is what's going on in the future. How are we going to navigate a roadmap to get us from where we are today to where we want to be in the future? How do we arm ourselves against change, competition, disruption, et cetera, et cetera? Before we get too far into the future, let's take a little step into the past. How many of you know that back at the beginning of the 20th century, the letter CEO at a company didn't actually mean the leader of the company, the chief executive officer. It was the chief electricity officer. This was the person that was in charge of powering up the company department by department over time. These people were really powerful, and they were choosing who was going to get access to this new technology, this electricity that was taking over the world. They were a separate entity. It's kind of similar to how IT works now. This organization that was all about providing electricity to the company. And that lasted for a while until the whole concept of electricity became assumed. It was ubiquitous, and it was assumed at that point that everybody was going to have electricity. You'd had access to it, and you no longer required a separate staff, a separate department, just to watch over how electricity was coming into the building and how it was being used. And then the chief electricity officers all disappeared. Their work was complete, and they didn't need to didn't need to exist anymore. We just moved on without them. We had electricity everywhere. They were not necessary. We do not want that sort of thing to happen to us as analysts, as people in charge of performance management, in charge of reporting, business intelligence, insights. But we need to change with the times. Speaking of that, things becoming a natural part of our lives. What you'll see here is a photo of our esteemed CEO, Chief Executive Officer of interRel, Edward Roski, and a picture of all of the things from the past, which are now sort of taken for granted and live right inside all of our pockets, our TVs, our typewriters, our music, our telephones, everything that we used to have all these separate devices for are now right there with us at all times in our phones, because similar to electricity, and all the things that used to be important. You had to go buy the tape to get the song that you wanted, or the record, or you had to go buy the book that you wanted to read. All of those are available right now easily in our fingertips. All of those things compressed down into that one device, our phones that we carry around with us all of the time now. So if we take that sort of concept and we're going to talk about business analytics, what's going on in the world of business analytics, what we'll find is a revolution taking place. So there's a change happening now, which is as revolutionary as the very concept of ad hoc analysis when it arose with tools like S-Space 25 years ago, where we've got an ability to access and analyze data in a way that we never had before. Some of the changes are ready to happen right now. They're available to you. We could do them currently with technology that we have available to us now, with staff we have available now, skills we have available now, such as self-service and data visualization. And we see some things coming where we'll need to be prepared and implement tools and be ready to deal with these as they come. Artificial intelligence and machine learning, big data is something that's kind of moving from that foreground vanguard group into the commonplace analytics area now. So we need to be prepared for business and analytics as the revolution is coming along. So because AI and because the computers are going to be doing so much for us out in the future, we're going to need to be prepared for that. Now, there's a lot of different schools of thought on how what the future is going to look like. So we're going to touch on the major schools of thought on what the future is going to be, and then try and figure out for ourselves, what we personally think the future is going to be. So let's look at these 5 that we think may be coming to us in the future. Let me go back to 1. First, we have the dystopians. So their position is that man and machine are going to wage an incredible Darwinian struggle. The machines are going to win that struggle. AI systems are going to take on the tasks that are at the heart of all of our middle, high-skilled jobs. Robots are going to perform all the menial work that requires low-skilled labor. The result of this will be massive unemployment, falling wages, wrenching economic dislocation. Falling incomes are going to have a grave consequence. Places like the United States and Europe, where our consumption is ranging from 56% to 69% of GDP. It's requiring completely new social supports, things like universal basic income, just so that people can have a place to live and stuff to eat. And the computers might kill us all, but don't worry about that. At this time right now, we do have 4 other schools of thought that might happen, so don't worry right now about potential technology-driven apocalypses at the moment. But this is one of the futures that people are envisioning as potential out there somewhere. So on that inspiring note, let's look at the next. So this is our technology optimist, slightly rosier view about what might happen. This is a group of future-looking people who believe that a burst of productivity has already begun. It hasn't quite yet been captured in official data because companies are still learning how these intelligent technologies are going to be able to be measured, and how we're going to be able to take advantage of them and change how we operate. When companies do begin to take full advantage of these intelligent technologies, there's going to be a leap in productivity. It's going to be a digital bounty. It's going to create economic growth and improvements in living standards that are not counted in the GDP, such as consumer surplus. We'll get better and cheaper products, the value of free apps and information. I know that I've got access to a doctor right on my phone now I never had before, someone who can write a prescription for me. If I've got cold or sore throat or anything, I've got something available right here on my phone. I have to go somewhere and do something. I can share information with a medical professional through an app and get the benefits that I need right here off of my device, which I think is really great. But based on current trends, the analysis currently is that this bounty is not going to be distributed evenly. Many jobs are going to be displaced, and in order to avoid negative income and employment benefits, there's going to have an investment in education, investment in training. We've got to put that alongside our investments in technology so that we don't get left behind. Since this school of thought, the idea is that reporting and analysis are going to need to improve to capture some of the changes in the metrics that we're looking for. And that's going to enable us to harness and take advantage of this technology revolution, move forward into the future, and have this one that is somewhat more optimistic. Now there is somewhere in some kind of in the middle of the last two that we've seen, which are called the productivity skeptics. So let's think about that for a second. What this position is that even though we're going to have all this power of intelligent technologies, any of the gains in national productivity levels or improvements, that they're going to be kind of low. We got to combine the benefits that we're getting with other factors, such as headwinds, like our population is aging. We don't have as many of a high percentage of young people as we used to, and we got a high percentage of people aging. We've got severe income inequality. We're going to have some serious costs dealing with certain factors like climate change and globalization, et cetera, and the United States and the companies are going to have somewhere near zero growth because these advances and then the difficulties are going to somewhat cancel each other out. So in the end, there isn't much to do except to brace for stagnant growth and the economies to come. So since growth is going to be near zero, we're going to have to plan for that as one potential scenario. Kind of a flat growth curve might be one of the more optimistic scenarios that we'll see. We talk a lot about mapping out scenarios in our strategic planning models, pulling in various potential futures so that when we figure out which one is happening, we've already run the numbers for that and we're prepared for it and we know what our plans are based on what's actually happening out in the world. If we do find ourselves in one of these flat scenarios, we'll know what to do. If we find ourselves in one of the more optimistic scenarios, we're going to be able to harness that and have more significant business growth. We need to have a plan, whichever one of the futures actually does wind up playing itself out. So let's now look at the Utopian group. These are the most rosy thinkers looking forward to the future. This is what I kind of call the Star Trek future, where we have intelligent machines are going to take on even more of the work over time, always more and more work, and the result is going to be unprecedented wealth, not economic decline. AI and computing power is going to advance over the next, let's say, 2 to 20 years, achieve the singularity, which is when machines are going to be just as smart as we are. They're going to be able to do as much and as thorough, maybe even better thinking that we do, emulate the workings of the human brain in its entirety, perhaps the chance to take human brains and scan them into computers, download them into the computers. We'll have billions replicated human brains to do most of the cognitive work, do the thinking for us, do the innovating for us, while robots are going to do all the heavy lifting and the labor. Economic output potentially could double every 3 months in this scenario. Singularity may even lead to a world where very little human labor is actually required. Universal income program covers everyone's basic needs. People are happy. They're able to use their talents for whatever meaningful pursuits give their lives purpose and meaning. But in the meantime, we do still have to close the books. This brings us to our final group, which is called the optimistic realist. So this is a group, and as I tend to be an optimist, so I kind of fall into a group similar to this. Maybe it's not the best thing to say in polite company, but I'm quite an optimist most of the time, and I think we live in a pretty good world, and I think it's trending in the right direction. You don't get a lot of debate about that. It's easier to complain about things and say that things are going terribly, but actually, I think things are going on pretty well. But you do want to be a realistic thinker about these things. The position here is that digitization, intelligent machines are going to definitely spur our productivity gains. And that's going to be similar to what we've seen in the past: industrial revolution, computer revolution, information revolution. It's going to be similar to those types of technology waves. Productivity will advance rapidly in certain sectors for high-performing companies. New jobs are going to be created, but intelligent technologies may exacerbate or even reverse trends that we've seen in the labor market before from previous waves. We've seen demand rise in high and low skilled workers, while the middle workers may get squeezed. With no simple solutions here, we're going to have to do more research, figure out what the real relationship is between these technologies, productivity, employment wages, etc. Figure out the appropriate responses in order to steer us toward these more optimistic scenarios. And speaking of all of those technologies, let's look. We want to make sure that we address the elephant in the room, even if that elephant is not an actual elephant, but it's more maybe a cloud that's shaped like an elephant. It's still important that we talk about that, because that's going to be basically a given coming into the future. The cloud is going to be so much a part of our lives that we will stop using that term, and it will not be significant anymore whether things are on-prem or on the cloud. Things are just going to exist, and they're going to be cloud-based, because that's the way we live our lives. This phone that you have, most likely right within reach of you, and you've probably just looked over and glanced to make sure that it is within reach of you, is the world's greatest cloud access device, and we're not going to give them up anytime soon. So let's take a look at the modern analytics revolution. That's what we're here to talk about. It's got a lot of different aspects here. Among them are these ones that you see here: data visualization. This is making huge strides in recent years. This is going to continue to do that. Analysis inversion, I'll be talking about that in some detail in a bit. Self-service is it's a buzzword that's going around. We talk about this a lot. You've got to have a lot of the right factors in place for self-service to work. The data has to be accessible in such a way that getting the wrong answer is difficult for that self-service user. The data has to be organized, and the tools have to be easy enough to use that we're getting the right answers. Got a cool demo coming up about natural language and mobile. Real time means we're just going to need to connect all of our reporting and analysis systems ever more closely to the source system, so we're getting data that's relevant right now. We're getting closer and closer to that now, where we used to load data overnight and analyze it the next day. We've moved to hourly, we moved to even tighter than that, and we're getting to where we're just tying things directly to the source systems so that we can find out what's happening at this very moment. Artificial intelligence is a big part of the future. We have to figure out how to harness that, how to use that, how to take advantage of that, not be caught at a competitive disadvantage. And of course, big data. Everybody's talking about big data these last few years. How do we harness that? We're creating more and more data at an accelerated pace every day, and it's never going to slow down ever for the rest of the history of humankind until the sun takes over the earth. So there are several steps and ways that we'll get to the future of modern analytics, and the first one of those is data governance. This is where we're going to organize and have our data reliable and consistent across multiple platforms, multiple tools, multiple departments. It always says the same thing, means the same thing, is organized the same way. And we're going to move to self-service so that we can take advantage of those governed data sources and mine them for information. We're going to have to let the people out there in the business that know what they need to do, how to react to problems, how to solve problems, go and get information that they need for their analysis. And as we move even farther into the future, we're going to turn those data sources over to the computers so that they can monitor and mine and analyze and report to us what they find. So version 1, the data governance, is IT-driven, semantic models that they are organizing and creating so that people can go get them. Um, version 2 here of self-service, that's business driven, where we've got end users from the business going in and taking over control of that data, reporting of that data, analysis of that data. And then the 3 version that you see up there is driven by the computers themselves, where they're going to go and autonomously mine through that data, discovering things that we had not thought of before. So let's go a little bit deeper into the governance aspect of modern analytics. This is where a lot of companies have made great strides over the last few years. They are getting to where data and metadata, that is dimensions and the structures and the things that live inside of dimensions, it's been very manual. We're going through a transformation now where that's becoming more automated. We are having dedicated systems such as DRM, such as Enterprise Data Management Cloud Service, EDMCS, external dedicated systems to managing and automating and putting workflow around data and metadata, so that what we want to do is manage that data, managed by exceptions. We don't want to be paying attention to all of this, how data is shared, how metadata is shared between applications, between tools. We want that to happen by itself. We want the robots to be managing that for us. We just want to go and pay attention to it when something fails, something goes wrong, we're alerted, and we need to go fix it. This is a thing very similar to the electricity that we were talking about before, that we're going to only pay attention when it's gone. Of course, a blackout gets our attention. Our data and our metadata not being coordinated will get our attention, but it will be an exception, and we need to manage it that way. So let's look a little bit deeper into this. Something that we call analysis inversion. This is an important next step, kind of an intermediate step between data governance and the next step up, which is self-service. Analysis inversion is where the person that has, in the past, the person that was delivering a report, maybe it was an IT person or a technical person who had organized that data and created the report to someone else's spec. They were delivering a report, but they didn't really understand it, and they hadn't really done any analysis on that. And they're handing it to a person who was expected to go and take that information and do something with it, to go deeper and analyze and figure out what to do. We're seeing that change now. Analysis inversion means that the person responsible for creating that report is actually someone with knowledge of what is in that report, what it means, how to figure out what trends we're seeing, what outliers we're seeing, and begin to deliver that analysis. So I can give a report to a manager and say, hey, your sales in this quarter for this product are seeing a dip. We think this is why. We need you to go and figure out what to do about it. That doesn't mean that we're educating the technical people who are running our databases and installing the systems, the software on our servers and everything. We're not making them more knowledgeable about the business and asking those people to do the analysis for us. What we're talking about is shifting the responsibility for generating those reports into the business, where it has lived in IT traditionally. That's shifting into the business so that we have people that are knowledgeable who are now able to go in, take those governed, curated data sets and begin to be responsible for creating those reports. So that means visualization, narrative reporting tools, these things that are coming online, we're going to be using those more frequently. We're going to have to change to those types of reports. We're going to have to change the personnel that's generating those reports. And we need them to be able to go in and dive in deeper if they need to before they deliver that report. Spot 3 major outliers, say, and then say, hey, you need to look at this. It seems kind of significant. Give it to that next person down the line who's going to be responsible for it. Now, this is kind of interesting. We have data on this. We've got some trends that we're seeing in the world as part of our survey. You saw the The URL for that earlier is epm.bi/survey. If you're interested in taking it, contributing your data here for the upcoming webinar later this month, we can see here that we have one question on the survey that mentions, who's responsible for generating reports at your company. And in the past, we've seen IT, kind of dominating this field because, they are the ones running the database and they know how to write the SQL queries to do this and pull this data and join the data together. What we see here is that the analysis inversion phase 1 has happened. We have got people in the business generating reports, primarily in the FP&A or out in the business units themselves, who are responsible for generating those reports and then interpreting them down the line. So that's interesting to me. We have trends. People have been predicting this for a while, and we're seeing it in our actual data as we go out and ask businesses what they're doing, what they're up to, how they're actually doing business. That gets us all the way up to self-service now. So what we're going to be talking about here is the ability to go out and do it yourself. So what we have now is we've moved beyond the analysis inversion. That hasn't gone away, but we're also empowering those people that are receiving the reports to go and do deeper analysis themselves if they want to. The tools are becoming even easier to use, even more intelligent, even more insightful at driving people toward the ability to do deeper and deeper analysis. Ability to do it yourself relies on the first two components, but now we're able to turn the reins over to the people out in the business that are capable of doing this because the tools enable it. We're expanding the world of people that are doing analysis. We're expanding the ability to make good decisions based on business knowledge, based on local knowledge, based on departmental knowledge, based on experience out there in the actual field. Now let's talk a little bit about mobile. This used to be something that was a nice to have. It was something that we were like, we're going to install the systems and we want people to be able to do this, be able to do that. And, if they're able to access it through their mobile devices, then, that's good. That's a nice to have. But what we're seeing now is that trend has changed. What mobile has become now in the marketplace is it's assumed. Up to this point, we've been able to get away with it as an afterthought, but now any new system that we're installing, any cloud-based product, any service out there, people are expecting and needing to be able to access that through their mobile devices. And I'm not just talking about iPads and these large tablets. I am talking about our phones. It was thought for a long time that our phones are too small. Now, mine happens to be pretty big. Edward Roski likes to mock me sometimes for the size of my phone, but I noticed that lately his is a little bit big too. I was just early to the game on that. Anyway, they've been saying that our phones are too small, but as we go and we learn about human interaction, we're finding that you need to change how you deliver it. If you take Microsoft Outlook as an example, they spent a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of money trying to get Microsoft Outlook to run on people's phones, and the interface was just too complex. They're trying to do way too much, and we found that we just need a simplified, focused, intuitive interface. And people are now able to access their email and their calendar and everything that they were trying to cram into that one complicated app. They're getting it done. They're doing it on their mobile devices. They're just not using Outlook. We have to rethink how people interact with the data, with the devices. Smaller, faster, more intuitive. Sorry, Microsoft, you were not good enough at all of those things. We're getting at that in all different ways now through our mobile devices. And that brings us to timeliness. We need to kind of understand that people accessing this data through their phones are thinking about what's going on now. As we mentioned before, your phone is with you all the time. It's our security blankets now. We need them nearby. we're not thinking people out there using these devices are looking at last month's data. We're not thinking that they're looking at some report that's the same if I looked at it today as I looked at it yesterday. These are the expectation users have. If they look at it, it's going to be different from last time they looked at it. Everybody's used to looking at their phone and getting something different than the last time they picked it up, even if it was just 30 seconds ago. There's a new alert, there's a new something, new notification. That's the expectation. What we need to do is drive toward that expectation, not fight it, embrace it, connect to our data sources, allow people to interact with it in new ways, in creative ways, whatever it is that comes to mind. They want to know what's happening out there right now. So we're going to worry less about the past. We're going to think more about the current state. Is it going to kill off desktop applications? Yes, to the same extent that electronic reporting has killed paper reports. That is, it has not. We still see lots and lots of printed reports, board books, management books, budget reports, things that are going into binders, being distributed, handed out at meetings. There's a place for that. There's going to continue to be a place for desktop applications. We will interact with them differently than we do our mobile devices. They will have a different purpose. There's going to be a different set of applications there, but they're all going to have their place. They're not going to be supplanted by these mobile devices. Now, here's something that's actually pretty cool. It's called Oracle Synopsis. You may have heard of this before. You can go out and get this right now. It's free off of either the Play Store for Android or the App Store for your Apple devices. What this does is it opens Excel files for you, and if those are reasonably well organized Excel files, it'll choose some visualizations and choose some graphs and present you that data in kind of an interesting way. It's not doing any real machine learning, any real AI here, but it is doing some choosing of what might be the best visualization of the particular data that you've just opened up, give you a chance to kind of interact with it in a different way. And again, it's a free app. This is kind of a first step towards something I'll be showing you in a minute, which is actual AI through your mobile device, giving you access to data in real time, but it's a little bit more, a little bit less of a free app. Anyway, how do we move toward using AI? How do we maybe keep ourselves from being disrupted in the future? So, a quick story. Coming home from the airport, actually having delivered a presentation very, very similar to this. Sitting in a car with the Uber driver, headed home, and we just get to talking about things. Mentioning that things are disrupting the industry, particularly around Uber. We know that Uber has said they're going to be buying thousands and thousands of cars, deploying them as autonomous vehicles, driving around without drivers in them. The fella that was writing this, well, you don't have to worry about that right now. Self-driving cars are years in the future, 20 years, 25 years in the future. Don't have to worry about that right now. So my thought is, au contraire. We have autonomous vehicles on the road right now. We have them running around where our offices are in Arlington, Texas, to shuttle you around. We have them as well. I saw them actually driving around in the area where the Dallas Cowboys have their practice facility up there in the Dallas area as well. We even have going on in Dallas right now a program where Uber has leased the roofs of a bunch of parking garages around town and are going to be operating in the next few years autonomous flying human-sized drone vehicles to take people around town through the air and drop them off on the roofs of parking decks. This is happening. And it's happening sooner than this poor fella driving the Uber thinks. So we don't want to be like this Uber driver in our EPM and BI world that person is the most impacted by this disruptive technology, the least informed about that. So how do we get more informed, right? How do we keep ahead of the curve, make sure that we're not the ones left behind? One of them is to be able to take advantage of the tools and the AI that are coming. This is a quick example I want to show you of this tool called Day by Day, which is part of the Oracle Analytics Cloud product. Just a video here where it's an interaction on my phone here. I can look at different visualizations I have stored, look at communication coming to me in real time about that information. I can take that, I can say, I want to look at this again tomorrow. I'm good now, put a snooze on that. I'm going to pull that visualization back up about this time tomorrow. Now I've got a couple of other ones. I want to pull in some more information. Give me revenue by product type, by month. It's going to go out. It's connected live to a data source, pulls in a few different ways that I might look at that data. On this first one, I'm going to say, I want to look at this. And in fact, I want you to pull this up anytime that I go to this place. So I can put in when I go to Oracle headquarters here, pull this information up because I'm headed to a meeting and I'm going to need that. This other data, let me look at that on the revenue by month. I'm going to add that onto my smart feed, which is something that I've saved off, and I'm going to keep that. I don't particularly like this visualization. I'm going to change that to something that's more meaningful to me, more useful. I'm also going to add that to my smart feed. Now I go back. This is my smart feed. It's got all those things that I've added on there. This is kind of cool here. I'm going to take this, I'm going to share it with my crew. So it's a very modern app. We're going to use the terminology crew. I've created a crew in there, which are my companion, my colleagues that I'm going to be sharing this with. I get to name them within the product. They're my crew. I can share all of this with my crew. They can comment back, and we can have an interactive relationship with one another and with the data done by this app. So that is day by day. It's included within the Oracle Analytics Cloud Enterprise application. That's pretty cool. It moves us a little bit closer to this discussion about computer-driven analysis. We just saw an example of that, but it's kind of been around for a while. It's been kind of manual for a bit. What we're doing is moving that toward the time when we can have computers doing that for us. So let's have a little moment to think, a quiz here. Can you guess what might be the top 2 factors driving the size of the lunch crowd at McDonald's? So this, if you think about 2 McDonald's that are relatively close to one another, not a whole lot different from one another. On a given day, one has a larger lunch crowd than the other. If you did an analysis on all of that data, had enough information about all the restaurants, what would be the determining factor about what would determine the size of that lunch crowd? So let's ponder it for a second. I'll give you the answer. As it turns out, the main things that drive the differences between the size of the lunch crowd on nearby McDonald's with the same weather on the same day is whether it has one of these play places for the kiddies to have a good time in before and after lunch, and the size of the women's restroom, the number of stalls and the roominess inside of there. And the reason, as you go in and you figure this out from the data, and then it makes sense. Yes, the families are willing to drive a little bit farther or will gravitate toward the restaurants that have places for the kids to play when they take them to lunch. We're talking about the little kiddies, the toddlers that are out there that love McDonald's. And then since we kind of want to keep the family together when it's time to take our bio breaks, it's beneficial if we can just cram everybody into the same place at the same time and have everybody do their business in this roomy restroom with more stalls so that the moms don't have to manage the kids being separated or whatever. So this is actually an insight that McDonald's reached years ago. And you can kind of see them using that knowledge to their advantage as you look at different McDonald's as you go to. But what we need to be able to do is create these kinds of insights regularly. We need the computers to be helping us out to make those kinds of observations all the time, so we can continue to make improvements all the time. So we've got to get away from humans doing that analysis themselves during limited hours. When the computers, we can have them working 24/7, looking to find patterns, exceptions to those patterns, and explain them to us through a chart, through a graph, or even through plain English. Determining what drives a metric should be as simple as asking the computer to explain it to us. And I actually have an example where this happens now. I can show you how that works here in just a second. We have to prepare for our roles as analysts to change from trying to find issues and explain them into trying to find solutions, because the issues have come up, and now we're able to look for solutions by diving in deeper. Machine learning, incidentally, it's going to get better and better at bringing issues to our attention, or ideas to our attention. If we think about maybe higher education, if the computer comes back to us and it's like, hey, you know what? I noticed that we use up a lot of ketchup on days that we sell French fries, and we use up even more ketchup on the days that we serve tater tots. We could be saving a whole lot on ketchup if we just quit selling those things, and it'd be great savings. And we go, no computer, that's a dumb insight. The kids like their tater tots, they like their French fries. We're going to have to eat the ketchup expense, continue to give the kids their tots and their fries. Why don't we think about something else, such as students that are dropping out, and maybe try and figure out what are the factors there, and we can figure out maybe which kids are at risk just to leave school. Let's turn our attention in that direction, and then we'll go, okay, you know what? I will remember that you did not like that, and I will try to make better insights in the future. That's what machine learning is, where the success of a given thing that the machine does circles right back in and is used as it's trying to do future analysis. So that brings us to this explain. This is actually built into data visualization right now, where I can have a data set and actually have the computer do some of the analysis for me. So let's start this movie up, and we'll talk about what's going on here. So what I'm going to do is pick an aspect of my metadata. Here I've got a measure called attrition. I'm counting how many people are leaving my company over time. I can right click on that measure and I can say, explain it to me. And it'll go through and it'll give me some basic information about that. It's either a yes or it's either a no. They either left us or they didn't. This is how many people left us. This is how many people didn't. And so I say, thank you. This is good basic information about that metric. Let's go a little bit deeper than that now. Let's look at some different segments within the tool that explain that. Let's go and advance this slide, if you would, please. That's interesting. Here we go. Let's look at the key drivers of attrition. Oh, let's see. I've got some hits. The job role affects it. People's job level affects it. Seems to have a little bit of a factor here on overtime. I want to check mark those two things because they seem to be kind of significant to my analysis here. Let's look a little bit deeper. Some issues about job satisfaction, how long people have been working for us, their rating on what they think their work-life balance is. Let's look for anomalies. Where do we have things that are outliers? We've got some people that are traveling frequently, but if we compare that to their percent salary increase, well, that looks kind of interesting. I better check mark that one. And let's continue on and take all those things that I checked mark and get them onto this visualization here. And here I can kind of arrange it and go, let's see, where's my attrition happening? It seems to be happening in my sales organization more than anywhere else. I've got some low-level people that are traveling a lot. They seem to be working really hard, but I didn't give them a very good raise. I got a lot of people that didn't get a very good salary increase. Maybe they feel like they're not going anywhere. Thank you, computer, for helping me figure this out. I've got to go and talk to my sales organization and find out why I've got this factor. Why aren't these people getting their raises? I've got some solutioning to do here because we're losing too many low-level sales representatives. So this is great insight that the system has given me, and it began with asking it to explain attrition. Let's do a little something else here. This is really cool. This is the natural language that we were talking about. I've just chosen a narration report type. Right now, the data that you see on the left and the right are exactly the same data. Now I'm going to break it down by quarter for these sales, and then I'm going to ask the narration side to give me information broken down by shipping method. I want to isolate that quarterly data now with only within a particular year's worth of data. And I want to add a little bit of a different visualization broken down by shipping mode. And now you can see these are all tied to one another. So if I click on delivery truck, the graph changes and the narration changes. If I click on Express Air, I can see a different breakdown in English and in a chart about that specific piece of data that I've isolated to up within that chart. It's just really cool. It gives you some interesting descriptions in English of what you're seeing in other areas of the graph, and it gives you nice, specific breakdowns here where you can see from here to here is 111% rise comparing with where we started to where we ended. One thing that I note here is that we do need people to look at this because it kind of so far hasn't noted this big drop off that happened right here. Maybe we need to go and have a look at that. Maybe we can ask the machine to go and look a little bit closer here. What happened here? Because it's kind of a rosy picture. We gone from here to here, 111% growth. But if we had continued that trend, what we have, like 500% growth. So we got to go and find out what's going on there. But that's a really cool feature. This is in the current version of Data Visualization Desktop. So that's pretty cool. Where's the future taking us? Maybe Tinder for budgeting, where it's easy. It's so easy to approve or deny a budget approval request, swiping left or right. I don't know. That's possible. But we think about something a little bit more useful for us as we go on. We're thinking about the future. Where we can see this going is first, adaptive intelligence systems are going to be anticipating your next system. You already have your browser that's pre-downloading web pages you haven't even clicked on yet because it thinks you're going to. This is the same thing. It's going to figure out your next question, work on your behalf, and be doing this 24 hours, 7 days a week. So then you come back the next day, the computer can tell you, hey, I figured out some things overnight you should maybe have a look at. Going to find patterns within models, and they're going to get better and better over time as the machines learn which of them we care about and which of them we don't. Insight consumption is going to move beyond visualization to conversational. So you saw on that day-by-day example in that video, there was a bit where we actually clicked on the microphone and spoke to the phone. We say, show me this by this by this. We're not going to have to do this all by mouse drags and choosing the right thing. Again, we're getting into Star Trek territory here, where we're talking to the computer and having it respond to what we're saying. Personalized narratives will be automated, improving business productivity. So the information you get will be personalized to you. The machine will know what you care about versus someone else. It's going to improve your productivity as data is delivered to you proactively, and it's anticipating your needs, giving you data that it can see you're about to ask for. This is like throwing up the sales report for a particular customer as you pull into their parking lot to pay them a sales visit. Things like that. Machines are going to definitely be providing that kind of interaction in the future. So let's take a look at a couple of things that AI is actually accomplishing right now. Uh, we can see these things happening out there in the world, showing us that these advances are definitely on our doorstep and they're going to be happening. Just last year in 2018, for the first time, there were 2 different programs that performed better than humans. These are adult humans reading material and then taking a reading comprehension test. These are the types of reading materials that we're taking the test on. You have to have outside information. You're bringing in information of history, of all, other things that are not included in the specific reading material. Outside material, you need to make inferences, things that are implied but not explicitly stated within the text. You need to draw conclusions, and you got to bring in life experiences. Why I specify these were adult people taking these tests. The computer algorithms passed these reading comprehension tests better than the human people were. And this was only just last year that this was accomplished. 5 years ago, those same programs, as they were figuring things out and getting better programming, et cetera, they could pass a reading exam up to a first grade level. They've surpassed that by a long shot now. If we go back a little bit farther in time to 2017, you may have heard about this. There's a program called AlphaGo, which was learning how to play one of the most complex games in the world, Go, which was never, the computers were never able to beat people before, but this allowed them to do that. AlphaGo was able to beat the best Go player in the world. And what's amazing about that is that AlphaGo program was then beaten itself by a different program, and all that program had ever done was play itself. It never even didn't know anything about the way anybody else played. It was called AlphaGo 0. They taught the computer the rules to the game and nothing else, no strategy, and they should just play yourself and learn how to play. And when it was ready, it ended up beating the AlphaGo program that had beaten the best person in the world, and it won 100 games to 0 without ever having studied the way humans play at all. And so they decided to turn that engine toward the game of chess. So all they did was teach the machine how chess pieces move, and it learned in only 4 hours how to play chess better than anything ever. Now, we know that years ago, the computers became capable of beating the best humans. So that was all that Deep Blue, Garry Kasparov stuff back in the day. But this machine taught itself to play chess in 4 hours and beat the strongest computer chess program in the world, which Stockfish, maybe you've heard of that before too, using machine language and neural network, the same kind of basic piping behind the AlphaGo 0 program, not on any previous knowledge, but reinforcing what works, discarding what doesn't. Powerful search algorithm is currently unbeatable. 100 games against the previous computer champion, never lost a game. And lots and lots of draws in the game of chess, but that engine never lost a game. And what's something that's interesting about it is in the course of winning those games, it played in a way that no one has ever seen before. It didn't play like a computer. It didn't play like a human. People that were watching these games, chess experts were watching it and their minds were blown. They were saying that the game was playing like an alien. It created brand new openings that no one had ever seen or thought of before. It would sacrifice material in ways that no one would ever do in order to gain position. It didn't have any biases about what was better and what was worse. It would give up a queen in order to control a section of the board that it knew it was going to need later. It was making moves that no human could make, that no human could comprehend. I was actually reading an article, this is a true story, earlier today about a match similar to this and a move that it made. It was in a forum that was asking, what's the greatest chess move ever made, and there was one move made by this AlphaGo Zero engine in versus Stockfish that blew everybody's mind, and of course it wound up winning that game, moving a bishop that no one would have ever thought to move during the game. They figured it out later why it did it, but they didn't understand it at the time. So what we need to do is see this coming and make sure that we're going to be the ones taking advantage of these programs. We ask as part of our survey at epm.bi/survey, that's epm.bi/survey. We asked people last year, how long do you think it's going to be before AI plays a significant role at your company? This was the sentiment of people last year. If you're interested in letting us know your thoughts, you could go to epm.bi/survey and let us know as an additional question we're asking again this year. So what should companies do? Let's revisit quickly our 5 schools of thought about what the future is going to hold. The dystopians, which has Skynet waging war against all of us humans because the AI technology has determined that we are not useful, and we're all poor and broke and sad and in danger of our lives at all times. We have the optimists, which say it's going to spur tremendous growth, it's going to be great wealth, and we're going to have people being happy. They're going to get new jobs to take the place of the old jobs that are being displaced. We have the skeptics that say, well, we've got a lot of problems too. We're going to have these innovations happen so that we can just keep up with what's coming our way, the problems that we have. So they're going to just about cancel out. We have the utopians who say it's all going to be so great. All of the jobs are going to be taken, and we're not going to care because everything's going to be taken care of. And things are going to run off the power of the sun. Everything will be clean. The computers will be smart. They will be nice to us, and we'll get to go do the things that we want to do because all of our basic needs are met. And then we have the optimistic realists. These are the ones that say, yeah, all of that stuff is coming. None of these extreme scenarios are going to happen, but there's going to be definite opportunities to take advantage of these certain companies. We'll see the disruptions coming. They'll get ahead of it. They will create the disruption rather than be disrupted, and they will be able to leverage the new technologies to do the right analysis, to make the right decisions, moving themselves forward into the future, and things will be better, but none of these extreme situations are going to happen. These are things that you can begin to do right now to prepare yourself for any one of those 5 futures. Of those 5, which one are you? I don't know. Looking through, and hopefully you've got some idea of where you think the future is going to go, regardless of where you fall among those 5. Here's some things that you can do right now. 1, implement data governance solutions. We talked about that before. Those outside systems that can manage your data and your metadata, automate those, the distribution of that information, keep all the systems tied together so that you can go do other things and sleep well while those processes run themselves. Create a roadmap for a modern BI strategy. You're going to need to look at tools such as Oracle Analytics Cloud, such as other analytics solutions that are out there, and create a path for you to have access to these modern analytic methods, artificial intelligence, etc. Begin the analysis, inversion, conversion. If you haven't done this already, you've got to provide report making and generation tools to people in the business so that they're not dependent on the technical people. People generating reports need to understand the content of those reports. Implement a self-service data visualization tool, something like data visualization, something like Tableau, something that's going to give you visual access to data so you can interact with it in real time through your charts and your graphs, making new visualizations all along the way. Make your analytics device anywhere. Assume your end user is on a phone, is on a tablet, is on the golf course, is in a hotel somewhere, and they need access to their data. Even if they're just in a conference room down the hall from their office, they need to be able to get that on their devices anywhere. And a bonus tip, Be really nice to your future computer overlords, whichever one of the scenarios we find ourselves in the future. This is always a good idea to be nice to those that are in charge. And lastly, I'll leave you with a quick quote from Walt Disney. A lot of us sit around and talk, and we make plans and we debate what we ought to do and what we ought not to do. The best way to get started is to quit talking. Begin doing. Do something, learn something, change directions if you need to, continue in the same direction if the first step was correct. But it is better to be moving than not moving, and it is easier to keep moving than it is to start moving. That is the end of our content for the future of reporting and analysis. I would like to remind you very quickly about some future webcasts we've got coming up. There's me today, future of reporting and analysis. We have leading practices coming up next week for planning. We have leading practices in consolidation, close, reporting. And then we've got our big delivery of our state of analytics survey data coming back. It is not too late for you to get in on that. That URL again was epm.bi/survey. If you want to sign up to see the webinar, the results of all that being delivered back, that is at epm.bi/SOBA. That's SOBA, epm.bi/SOBA. I asked you actually to go to both of those. Go take the survey if you haven't, or if you have in past years and haven't yet this year. As far as throughout 2008 or so far this year. And then go to epm.bi/SOBA to sign up for the delivery of the results there. And then, of course, you can always check us out for future webcasts. If you'd like to register for the best EPM BI conference in the world, it is the ODTUG Kscope. It's going to be in Seattle, Washington this year in June. You can see the dates there. If you'd like to get a $100 discount on your registration fee, feel free to use our code when you sign up, IRC19. That's epm.bi/Kscope to get you there very easily, and use our code IRC19, $100 off. Here's the URL one more time. As you can tell, I'm very interested in having as many people take our survey as possible. Here you are if you're interested in tweeting about that or using social media to talk about it in the future. There's our hashtag, and I hope to see you at the end of January. That is, again, the end of the presentation. Thank you for tuning in, watching the demos, hearing about where we're seeing things going into the future, what the computers are going to do for you in the future, and hopefully not too much that the computers are going to be doing to you. Thank you again for tuning in. I hope to see you soon. This has been Joe Altman from Atlanta, Georgia. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks again.